Chris Garcia, welcome to Nature of Reality-O, and kudos to Anthony Pico, a friend of Daniel Teague, for recommending you as a guest to the show. Psychic mediums are always worthwhile guests. My first ever guest, and someone who follows my show very closely, was also a psychic medium. And before I give you the chance to give your life story, Chris, I need to give out a couple things as disclaimers of sorts that I've given on my past couple shows, and will probably give out on maybe half a dozen more shows in the future before I stop this. But first of all, to all the people who have been getting really pissed off about the fact that over the past 2.5 years you've listened to my show with headphones and you've had to deal with my voice in one headphone and my guest voice in the other earphone, that was because all this time on my Skype recorder I had it set to the stereo option. I assumed that it was some sort of sabotage or something, but it wasn't. Nobody bothered to tell me what that was. As a result of that, if you ever have to listen to any of the shows I've done the past 2.5 years, aside from the last two that I've done or so, if you want to listen to it with headphones, you're going to have to deal with that. My voice in one ear, the guest with the other. I recommend, if you don't want to deal with that, just find a way to listen to it on a computer screen with a volume high enough so you don't have to use headphones. But if you have to use headphones, sorry, just suck it up, deal with it. It is what it is, and that's the way it's going to have to be. But and that being said, there's another thing. I did get a message from the YouTube censorship Nazis not too long ago saying that my channel is suspicious because it contains a lot of spam. Well, that's bullcrap, because all I do is interview people, ask them questions, and have them give their responses. So the idea that my channel has any spam on it is absurd, because that all the only things on my YouTube channel are the interviews I've done, as well as a couple of interviews that I did when I was the guest on someone else's program. So let's just hope, cross your fingers, folks, that this show does not suffer the same fate as Alex Jones and other people who have been kicked off YouTube does. If that does happen, I will find a way to continue this show on some other medium. YouTube, I think, is one of the best mediums out there. Even though I don't do live shows anymore like I used to, it's still a great place to get a lot of listeners. So wish me luck, cross your fingers, and hope that doesn't happen. But now that I've gotten that out of the way, Chris Garcia, pleasure having you on. You've had your powers allegedly since you were 5 years old, so you says on your website, which I'll give you the chance to plug right now if you want. You just sent me a message saying you haven't had a website for a long time, and now you finally have one. Perfect timing for this show. So without further ado, please tell us who you are, your life story, anything and everything that goes with it. You can take as long as you need. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Well, I'm a psychic medium. I've had the gifts since I was like 5. My abilities are clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and have the abilities to remote view, see auras. I also do paranormal investigations. I've done a few of those on Facebook Live. I also do missing persons case for volunteer work that is at no additional cost. I do that kind of work and I love it. The paranormal work I don't do at no cost. I also do psychic work and mediumship and channeling, and there's many other things I do. But that's how I've had it. And then as far as the gifts, Andrew, you could say that I've had these gifts, like I said, ever since I was young. It runs in the family. It's genetic. So it's like passed through the generations. There's others that are more quiet in the family, but they're not like out in the public as me. But I've been just doing this since my first show since last year's of March, and it's been just progressing. And I love to, connect with people and help people in any way I can with my services. I don't know if I can give out my number, but I usually do give out my number. But I can say that at the end of the show, or you could just give that website out, and it still shows my number. But you know what? I'll just say it. So if they want to contact me, it would be 210 974 3470. Again, 210 974 3470. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, great, great, great. So going from here, let me see. I guess this little bio here that you have up here is what I'll put in the YouTube thing. It says you have the ability to see auras and remote viewing. All right, let's go step by step throughout the course of this website here. What do you have to say about auras? How exactly does one, if you can't see an aura now and you want to get the ability to see auras, do you have any advice for someone in that regard? And more importantly, I guess, what if you see a color of an aura? What does each color represent, if you can get into that. You see an aura of that color, and also the size of the aura. What does the size represent? If you have a small aura, it means this. If you have a big aura, it means that. So color, size, and also how do you spot any glitches in the aura? Um, and well, we'll go from there. So that's enough for now.
Well, the thing about the auras, I mean, can anybody study them? I mean, I would say they have to be gifted. I've never heard of any classes that they can take aura classes, but I'm pretty sure they can. They just have to use like a person standing behind a clear wall or a colored wall, and then they would just have them, I guess, lean against the wall, and then to see if they have anything on the outer layer of their body. Um, and then I guess you can say with the auras, to me, I would say that depending on like how your day is doing, your day is going and stuff like that. So if you're very happy, you're going to probably have more like bright colors, yellow, green, more of the like fluorescent colors. Um, and then if there's like having a bad day, you're probably going to have more of the dark, the same color, but it's going to be a little bit darker, depressed, be even more darker. It might be turned like a dark blue, depending on what kind of stuff you're going in your life. So really, it does go not just seeing the aura, but it also goes into the medical condition too of your health. The brighter it is, the best that is. But if it starts getting dimmer, then you have so much to live, and so because that's when they're at their deathbed, their aura starts to fade. And then it's not there anymore once they crossed over. It's not even there. But as long as it's almost like we have an outer egg, that's the best way to put it, like a globe over our body, and that's the best way to put the aura. And now, as far as like I said, as far as like maybe reading and studying the aura, I've never came across that. But then I wouldn't discriminate anybody to try it. But it does take a lot of work once you get the idea. You test yourself with family members, friends, and so forth.
Thank you very much for that. And remote viewing, boy, I'd love to be a remote viewer, but you say the ability to do it. I mean, it's a misnomer in some way, remote, because I mean everything is here at once to space and illusion, so it's not really remote, and you're not really viewing. It's just accessing a part of your consciousness to see something within the acknowledged illusion of space-time, but the name remote viewing has stuck, and I've tried to watch a lot of videos about this and even a few videos to learn how to do it, but I don't really know if I'm cut out for it myself. I've tried to practice it. It doesn't seem to work out too well, but what do I know? Maybe I'll be better at it someday. But what exactly have you, how do you go about remote viewing? Tell us how it's done to the best of your knowledge and ability, and if someone wants to learn how to do it, what would they have to do? And if you've actually discovered, for lack of a better word, anything while remote viewing, please tell us what your discoveries have been that you can share, of course.
I guess it's like almost between. Oh, and that's another thing. I astral project, so it's almost like astral project from to different locations, like bilocate. But the thing with remote viewing is like I can be here and I can like just like if somebody's missing, they can show me a photo and I can see like where they were, where the streets, where they turned. Like if somebody was kidnapped, I would be able to see everything like in a movie. It's almost like watching a movie. And as far as discovering the gift, I say it's been just very intense, and it's sometimes it gets very emotional depending on how you use your gift in remote viewing. It really does vary. I've had it used with paranormal cases where I couldn't be there physically, and I told them what I saw, and they saw a picture frame and stuff like that, and that's been validated. Missing persons case, I've done that a few times, and that's been very successful for me. Now, as far as remote viewing for classes, now that I believe you can take classes for, but you have to practice maybe on somebody that's far, maybe like I said maybe in the same state, but they be at their house and you can describe their house without them telling you anything, and then you can describe anything like what they have, how their house looks. So you can try testing that, and that's one thing you can try. I've done that a few times, and I had a friend that was in Atlanta, and I remote viewed from here to her house, and I saw everything, like I was in her house. So it's kind of creepy, but it's kind of cool at the same time.
Thank you very much. You are an empath as well, and as some people say it can be a bitch to be an empath because you take on the negative feelings of other people, and that can be quite unpleasant. But then again, that's just one of those things. Empaths, some take pride in that because, well, I mean, if they say all the more pain that I'm taking, all the more better an empath I'm being. So, uh, if someone wants to be an empath, what exactly do you suggest that they go about doing to improve their empath skills? And how exactly has being an empath affected you in regards to any suffering that you may have had as a result of taking on people's negative qualities? And do you feel that it's is definitely worth it to take on that pain and suffering if that's what happens?
Well, the truth is, I've done like, when I read stuff, it's like, I pick up on their feelings and emotions, and somehow I guess I just do like a clearing, protection, grounding over myself because, it does kind of like affect. I don't know if it can affect your health. I mean, I've never had that, but never say never. But maybe later down the road, you'll start feeling more like fatigue, maybe certain things. But for me, I've been just blessed to protect myself and get rid of the empath of what I'm picking up from someone else. But sometimes I get very attached when I do readings. Sometimes I've gone to where I just like cry and it's their pain. So that's kind of just like absorbing like a sponge. Um, it's kind of tough, And then with even my personal life, I'm like actually going through something which I'm not going to discuss, but I'm going through this heartbreak of relationship, and that's as far as I'm going to go into that. It's just really hard because when you are with someone that's gifted and they're very empathic, we feel more of the pain when they hurt us or they cheat on us or they betray us, and it just we feel more than what an average person. I'm not saying that nobody that's not empath doesn't feel it. I mean, because it does hurt, but we feel it more like almost like a stab. That's the best way to describe it, and it's really painful when you um, know you're right and you feel it. It hits right at home, so that's tough. It's really tough.
I suspected it probably would be. So, that being said, let's go to the clairs. You have three clairs here: clairvoyant, clairsentient, and clairaudient. I'm just going to keep the questions short, sweet, and to the point. Could you please compare and contrast clairvoyant skills, clairsentient skills, and clairaudient skills, and please define them for those that aren't familiar with them?
Clairvoyant would be like more like pictures, images, seeing things in flashes. It just comes to you in a different way. And then clairsentient would be like more like feeling, sensing, and just knowing. And then clairaudient is more of the hearing things that you other person can't hear. That's very definitive. That there's just no way you can know that you can hear it, but you know it's there. So those are the three ones that I just that I have.
Okay, and can you tell us about your experiences with those things? What does it enable you to discover, for lack of a better word, having those skills in this reality about the nature of reality? Because I'm kind of interested to hear what you've discovered as a result of having that.
I mean, the thing I've discovered is just I've used that in even in when I go to sleep, I get clairvoyant visions, so I get premonitions of what's going to happen. And one thing I've known that when I get stuff like that, I have known that everything I'm getting, I think it's me for a second because I'm always like seeing. There's a few times where I've seen myself in visions, but I'm actually stepping in someone else's shoes for a second to see what it feels like to be them. And most of the times that I've noticed within the past few years is increased very intense to where stuff I see is usually for a client like 2 days or 3 days before. So I usually get stuff way like 2 or 3 days before I'm gonna read someone. And it's just crazy. It's just oh my god, I have no words to describe it. It's crazy because all the times that I've like done a reading or a session, I'll tell them, well, what is your name? And then I'll start off like, if they have a question, I give them that ultimatum if they want to ask a question. And then I've heard people, well, just give me a general reading and then I'll just tell you what I pick up and I tell them. And then when I'm done, if I haven't had a dream or a premonition the day before, I mention it. I tell them what I see, and then I find out later that what I see in my clairvoyant vision, my clairvoyant gives, has to do with what they're going through in their house or whatever, and divorce, you name it, finances. Yeah, I see it, and then they're like, "Oh my God, you had a dream of what I'm going through." So I've used it in all different fields of the missing persons cases. I've used it in the paranormal field. It's crazy, and it's tough, but I mean, but it's kind of freaky when you get the validation. But it's good because the validation to me is always important.
Well, that's good to know. And I'm gonna switch gears for a moment, and about being a psychic medium. Are you the kind of person that can channel deceased loved ones?
Yes, I can. It just comes on command. It's like I never turn my switch off. I know how some other psychics they turn their switch off. When they have to do a reading or somebody pays them. I'm always tuned in, so I'm just like an open door. That's just the best way to see it. And then you know what's funny that I'm seeing an open door because I don't know what this means, but yesterday I had an experience and I actually closed the door. And the door was closed completely, against like the door is supposed to be closed, and the door opened by itself, and nobody opened it. So I don't know if that means that I'm probably has something to do with somebody that maybe even you or somebody I'm about to read. I don't know. Maybe they're having kind of weird activity where the door just it's closed and you don't hear the nozzle and it just I mean the doorknob and it just opens by itself. But it opened very very slowly, like somebody was like peeking. And this happened to me yesterday. I want to say between 7 and 8 yesterday. So I'm thinking that that's probably somebody I'm about to read or something within that thing. So yeah.
All right, and boy, I thought I would stop talking about this, but hey, it's going to come up in conversation again, and probably will with future psychics on my show. The idea of some really prominent person with a household name that's dead interacting with psychics. Now, it was brought to my attention by Ted Marr that many of the big name people that have died throughout history, like in his case John F. Kennedy and also Albert Einstein, have were actually communicating with Ted Marr, and they say that those people have a very vested interest in having their spirit listen in on what's going on in the world in events like radio shows like this, which was why they were willing to answer questions for me. Ted Marr said JFK and Einstein were, so I had the chance to talk to their spirits directly, allegedly. And I mean, I had no reason to think Ted Marr was making that up, and I was kind of validated in a sense when I went to one of Ted Marr's conferences, where some other people who allegedly had psychic powers also asserted that Einstein and JFK and also Nikola Tesla were in fact coming through. But a psychic medium has told me, another one whose name I'm not going to divulge, that it seems a little too much of a stretch they feel for a psychic, excuse me, for a like household name person like that historical figure to come in. They would the psychic that is a psychic who does make a living, among other things, channeling deceased loved ones to help give closure for people. Said that a spirit wouldn't come in and unless they had a deceased loved one and truly had a purpose for it. I'm not really one to believe that because if you believe everything's infinite consciousness, then you believe in infinite possibility, which means it implies that everything is possible, including the idea for someone like an Einstein or a Tesla to come in and communicate with a psychic and relay information and help someone ask questions with them and whatnot. I mean, it may be a little bit of a stretch, some might assert, but it's certainly not impossible. And for a psychic to call another psychic a liar because they don't think that they would do that and think it's only deceased loved ones that would communicate, it didn't seem right to me. So, hate to pick on the psychic, you know who you are, but thought I'd never stop talking about this for a while. But do you have any comments on the issue of celebrities and big name household name figures like Einstein and Tesla coming in, and what is it wrong to say it's a stretch that those people would not want to come in and communicate with a psychic to talk with someone like me who's a radio show host?
Honestly, I wouldn't discriminate it. I mean, I haven't had any encounters with celebrities. I guess it's just because, I'm very open to helping people, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody that was well known, if they really wanted to talk to somebody, they know who to go to because God would tell them, in divine spirit and say, well, I have so many. You want to talk to a regular psychic, one that's working his way up and he's well known, or do you want to talk to a celebrity psychic that's on TV? So I guess they would have to give them permission, and then I guess the psychic or medium will be getting visions or premonitions of a celebrity. Like, let me see, think of a name. I can't think of her name. I just went blank. Marilyn Monroe would be a good example. You know, if she wanted to talk to somebody and conspiracy theories of, how she died, and there was something that was not, I guess you can say that wasn't, they didn't say, or the other psychic, or maybe the law enforcement, or whoever was in the investigation when she was alive, if there was some information that the public or the people that investigated, she knows that she could see them, but they wouldn't look for a clue, then she would have her own choice of saying, you know what, I want to contact Amy or Chip or any other big time names. She can do it, but it's all up to her own. Now, if she wanted to contact someone like me, since I'm working my way up, of course she would have to talk to the man upstairs, and then he would receive information. I would get information from him and says, well, Marilyn Monroe wants to talk to you, so be prepared. I'm going to show you some of these premonitions, and then I would go to sleep, and it would be like everything that she went through before she died. I would have that access information from the gifts and stuff. So yeah.
Fair enough. And I see on your picture here on the front of your website, you're holding a crystal ball, and you actually seem to have chosen a crystal ball as your little logo next to your name in the top left corner of your website. I was actually speaking to a psychic at an event that I went to this past Sunday at a place I had never been to before and finally went to for the first time in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. She was trying to help me discover what's like wrong with me and all that, and she told me, and she was holding a crystal ball as she did it, that one of my problems that I need to work on is a lot of my past lives are still affecting me in the present moment. I need to try to clear that out. I guess I might as well ask you, just for the hell of it, exactly how does a crystal ball help someone determine that specific thing that someone that they're trying to do a like a reading or a healing on has past life effects affecting them in the present moment that need to be worked on. And I guess I might as well also ask you in general, can you please explain why do psychics and mediums use crystal balls? What do crystal balls do? Can you tell us the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and the science behind crystal balls and how they work?
I think for me, I guess it's the metaphysical energy to it. I mean, I can use one, but necessarily I don't have to use one. I use tarot cards too, so that's another thing. But everybody has which to their own. Now, what that would, depending on what the psychic saw, then they would tell you like what kind of issues you had, past life regression. They would be able to look into the past, present, and future, and they would be able to probably look into everything that you've done, and then they would give you some kind of healing. I guess if they had like crystals around you, like amethyst or clear quartz, rose quartz, so they would have to work with what she saw. She would have to be guided in what she needs, what kind of healing you need to be done. Now, as far as the crystal ball doing all the healing, no, I don't believe that the crystal ball could do all the healing. I think that she would have to have some things with her at the present time before she did the reading. So, because I've used crystal balls and I've seen weird images and clouds and stuff, and look into like see what other people are doing to you. Like if there was like, and I know this is discriminating, but there's, if there was like witchcraft involved or voodoo or Santeria involved, I would be able to tell you who was doing it, what the candles would be, um, what else? Oh, and then I would be able to tell you like how that affected you with your personal life. So I mean, I work different. Every psychic or every reader is different, but I've even read people without even having a crystal ball or tarot cards or rune stones. I can still read without. I mean, I would just look at you and I'll be able to tell so much just by looking at you.
You make me envious. Wish I had that ability. Well, I know I have that ability because we're all infinite, but I lack what I lack to help me harness it. And well, with that being said, what is it that you have that other people don't that enables you to do what you do? Is it because you have DNA codons that are active that other people that don't have your abilities don't have active, or is it so much more than just DNA? Is it because you have some sort of a link to source that enables you to do this? And if so, can you explain the science behind what that link is, how it works, and how someone else can develop that link? If you don't know, you don't know, but I hope you know. That's why I'm asking you. Please
Yeah,
enlighten us on this.
honestly, that is a very good question. I would say that would probably be in the DNA and it's genetic, so that comes within my blood. Um, but it is kind of weird because I guess I have so much connected to source. I guess it's more I'm easier access to just communicate with the dad, get messages from other, stuff like that. And as far as like having the abilities that others don't have, I guess for me, when I do the type of work I do, it comes from my heart chakra. So me doing what I do, it's not a skill because I remember somebody else telling me that it's a skill. No, it's not a skill. It's a gift, God given gift. Um, but I can say that I've just embraced my gift and I'm blessed to have it. And if I had a chance to come back, die and come back, I wouldn't change anything. I would probably still be doing what I do. And I guess when I give information, I'm not thinking like logically up in my head. It's coming from my heart. So whatever my guides are telling me, I'm gonna do it with my heart with so much love that I'm gonna help you to let you know where your path is going and where you need guidance and direction. Most people just probably just think in their head like what they see. Me, it comes from my heart. That's how my gift, I guess, where it comes from source. It comes in full strength. When I see stuff, it comes to me in so many different ways that I've been validated with any of the readings I've done. I guess it's because I put a lot of love into it. Of course, I go to the man upstairs. He's one of my guides. Of course, without God, we would not be breathing. And then my other guide would probably be my grandmother, and she passed away at 92. And I know she's been guiding me with my journey and helping people on different shows and meeting different people. I guess it's just I trust in both of them, and I know that they would not lie to me, so I go with what they tell me. And sometimes, how the information, sometimes I'll hear it in a whisper that they'll tell me, well, you need to tell them this. And even though they might react to me kind of weird, thinking, why is he coming up to me? I don't even know him, and he's telling me something that he's not even supposed to know. And sometimes I've had made people cry, in person. So I guess it just comes from the heart for me, because I give it so much energy, and I guess my aura is so bright that, it comes from source. And I love what I do, and I give it a passion. It's not something like I say, oh, man, I have to do this reading. Oh my God, no, it's not like that. I don't even think that way. I give it all the love, all the energy, all source. And I said, I'm going to give them what they need to know and what they, tell them where their path is going.
Thank you very much. For the record, if you were not that you were thinking about it, but if you were wanted to do a psychic reading on me on this show, let's not bother with that. I've made a resolution when I first started doing the show that I would never, ever, ever ask a psychic medium or healer or a reader to ever do a reading on my show. This purpose of this show is to, on me anyway, the purpose of the show is to expose the nature of reality, and there's more important things than having people as guests on my show do specific things on me. So if you're planning on asking me about that, don't even bother. Let's get that out of the way. Want to move on to some other things that you do, though. Tarot card readings. Also had a tarot card reading myself at the session I went to this past Sunday. It's interesting how they just say the tarot card reader says pick three cards, any three cards after shuffling the deck, and I pick three cards, and the reading she gives me is it seems spot on to a T and fits very appropriately, and The skeptic will just say, well, that's just all in your head. Any three cards could have done that. Well, no, 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 no. Everything happened. The fact that everything happens for a reason, there's no such thing as a coincidence, and source is behind everything that happens, means that there is a reason I picked those three cards, and there was definitely no accident to it. Well, maybe you can elaborate on that, but I also want to ask, out of curiosity, which tarot card deck do you use? My tarot card deck for asking questions is the Deviant Moon Tarot, which just so happens to be the most popular tarot deck in the world. Some sites claim that. Don't know if that's true, but what is your tarot card deck of choice, and how do you? Is there any secret modalities and methods that you use to do readings for people?
Well, when I do them on Facebook Live, it's because I want so people can visualize, and I use the Psychic Tarot by John Holland. He's a very well-known psychic too, by the way. You need to check that out, Andrew, and everybody else that's listening to the show. You need to really check out that deck. They're beautiful cards. It's most of the tarot regular tarot has, I can't think of off the top of my head how many cards, but the psychic tarot has the same amount, but it's a less deck. But it's amazing, the designs on there. And how do I use my cards with that? What I tell them is the random number. You tell me the random number, and I do this on live only. I can do without the cards, but I do it so people can visualize what I'm seeing the card, what it says, and then I tell them my preparation of the card, and I tell them like this is what I'm seeing through the card, and so forth. The way I do it is like saying if you pick, say you pick five. Then what I'll do is concentrate on the name and the energy. I'll close my eyes, shuffle the card 1, 2, 3, and I'll just keep shuffling until I get to 5 and I stop, flip the card, and then there's your one card reading, which is overall at the one. I've done that a few times and it's been very accurate. I usually do like sometimes with people that are in person, I usually tell them like I'll do like a fourth card. So I'll tell them past, present, and future. So four cards I do. But on live, I'll do like one card and I'll pick up so much stuff with just one card. Even though that's just one card, I'll pick up other things that the card's not saying. And I'll ask my grandma, whoever's coming through, to tell me what I need to tell the client and what they need to know. And it's not what they need to hear, it's what they need to know, and give them the truth and honest information as possible.
Thank you very much. One other question about tarot cards I also want to ask. Whenever I ask my tarot deck a question, the Deviant Moon Tarot involves putting shuffling the deck, picking out 9 cards, then lying out the 9 cards in a circle around a moon with a face on it. And there's different things like past influences, subconscious influence, events yet to come. The last card deck is the final outcome, the 9th card, which, of course, is the answer to the question. And I always do that because that's the way the instructions say to do it. But in the event, like, if someone has a tarot deck and they don't have like enough time to do that, but they just want to get the question out, but they don't have enough time, so I wouldn't have enough time to put that in a circle like that. Can a tarot deck be trusted to, like, if you want a question and ask the tarot deck, I don't have time to do the circle of cards here, so I'm just going to pick out a card. Please enable me to pick out the card that gives the direct answer. I mean, that's not the creative and fun way to do it, but can you trust the tarot deck to do that, or will the tarot deck say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be honest with you because you're kind of abusing the intended purpose of the deck. You're supposed to do it the hard way, and you need to wait until you have time to ask the question. So what's your take on something like that?
Honestly, I think one card can say a lot because I do that with, in my life. So I see one card can say a lot. And now if you abuse it, I think it's just when you're ready to know the truth, you ask, when you ask the card, it's gonna give you the direct answer. And I would say don't use, like, I don't know how you do the spread, but you need to try maybe doing either a 3, like you just do 1, 2, 3 card, or you can do a fourth card, like just shuffle them and then you pick the first card, shuffle them, you put the second card that's on top, and you just keep shuffling until when you're done, you'll get a whole reading with just 4 cards. And you get the same reading like if you do like a triangle or a cross reading, because there's people I've seen where they'll just do the cards and they'll make a shape of a cross. There's different methods and different ways of techniques that they tell you to do it. But to me, you can do the 4 cards and still get the information that somebody else is doing. And they can do like a circle reading, like depending on how they design the cards when they put them down, you're still going to get the same information. It's just the person that's receiving the information might come out different. So, like if the lady that you read you and she did that deck, and if I touched her deck, I would probably get more different information, or I would use my deck. I would probably get the same information plus a little bit more of whatever's going on around you.
Thank you. Getting back to the crystal ball for a moment, I've heard this especially the case with pyramids. They say if you ever work with pyramids and your pyramid accidentally cracks, don't waste your money trying to fix the pyramid. Don't bother buying a new pyramid because the essence of the pyramid is still there. I've spoken to people on my show that have asserted that, and well, I've also got my own pyramid in front of me that I have in front of the computer. It's had a few chips off the bottom, but I haven't bothered to repair it. And some people that I've taken it to conferences say your pyramid seems to have a few powers and all that I'm noticing. So I think there's definitely truth to that. Now, would the same thing be true to with a crystal ball? Because the thing about a crystal ball, that perfect sphere, nothing's perfect, but for all intents and purposes, is a perfect sphere, which is an infinite shape. A circle is the only solid flat shape that has infinite lines of symmetry. A sphere would, I guess, be the only solid three-dimensional shape that could be said to have infinite lines of symmetry, but that infinite symmetry will go away if there's a crack in it. But does that ruin the essence of the crystal to the point where you would want to buy a new crystal ball, or do you firmly believe no, don't worry about it, the spiritual essence is still there, I can still use the crystal even though it's not perfectly spherical anymore?
Honestly, I think you can still use it, but the only thing is, I wouldn't say fix it because this is what I just was being told to tell you. If somebody has a pyramid and it broke, this is what's so weird. I got that if something breaks, it took the whatever pain you were going to go through, it took it it destroyed itself so you wouldn't feel so much of the pain. So like if a crystal ball breaks, you be like, "Oh my god, it broke." Well, actually it did that for a reason to protect you from something that was being thrown at you, and instead of being directly at you, it would be absorbing the energy of where it came from, and it would break and it would take the pain of a heartbreak or somebody that could be doing something energy wise to you, and it would just break. You wouldn't think anything of it because you'd be like, oh my God, maybe I dropped it. But no, things like that are just not coincidence. They they take the pain of the person that could be somebody doing something to you. They would just the pyramid or the ball or whatever it is, like if it's crystal, it would break to absorb that whatever issues you're going through. It takes the pain of you instead of you feeling it. It took the heartache of whatever issues you're going through.
Well, it's very interesting you mention that because I just moved to a new property recently, and I of course, moved all the things over, including some crystals, some quartz crystals that I had on my windowsills. I put them onto windowsills in the new property, and this one quartz crystal that I had, kind of oval shaped with like a smaller oval shaped jut sticking out of one part of the crystal, that actually broke off the crystal when I was at Alien Con in California a couple weekends ago. And when I got back, I asked my folks and also the housemaid who cleans my house, did you do this? And they said, no, we didn't. We did not do that. They had no idea what could have broken the crystal. So I'm thinking that maybe the reason you were told by whoever told you to tell me this, they told me that because they knew that I would remember that crystal having apparently broken at will. And well, I actually, when the crystal broke, I left part of the crystal on the windowsill, and the smaller part that broke off, I decided to put on top of the cylinder-shaped heating boiler thingy that's in the laundry room in my property. I guess that's where Source wanted me to put it, but the fact that this the crystal seemed to have broken at will, is that not an accident? Do you see something like that happening often, by the way?
Honestly, with certain people, if there's something negative being thrown at them, yes, it can be where it doesn't have to be a crystal. It can even be something like a protective necklace or protective symbol. If it breaks, because I've had, even with my own cousin, I gave her a rosary and other people giving her and it busted. So that's even kind of weird, because you would think, well, how would a rosary break if it's on the neck and no one's pulling on it? So with things with crystals, things that are symbol protection, yes, they can break. And I do believe that there's no such thing as coincidence. They do it for a reason, but you might think, of course, you're going to be heartbroken because it's something that you've always had, and but sometimes you get messages to say, you know what, you need to put this part of the crystal here, and then this other crystal here. Now, if it was like something like a ring or a rosary, you would have to, like, you can't put it outside, but you can hang it maybe somewhere else where you're being guided to. So that's just no such thing as coincidence.
Okay, and switching gears, what about the disappearing object phenomenon from a personal standpoint perspective? I recently was victimized by this. Well, a while back, I had some chips that EMF protection chips that I put on my cell phone and all. They had disappeared, and when I called the people I bought it from and say, "Is this normal? Do people call you and complain about the things you sold me? They're disappearing. What's going on?" And he actually put his wife, who's a psychic medium of sorts, on the line, and she told me that my paternal grandfather on the other side was telling her that angels and guides were taking that from me, to make their presence known, and also apparently as a way of saying, hey, don't waste your money on these things. We're here to do the work of these things for you, so you can be rest assured that we'll try to keep you safe. Now, I mean, even if that's the case, it's still disappointing that it would disappear. I just had a couple things disappear. Now, one of them has reappeared a few times. A bloodstone, after I read the Aries, like a good luck stone for Aries of sorts, is a bloodstone. Bought one off Amazon. It's actually disappeared and reappeared a few times, in places where I know it. I looked before and it wasn't there, and they've been gone for. It was gone for quite a while before it reappeared again. And also had a couple pendants that I bought off. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's the guy who said he was like the reincarnation of Ben Franklin or something. Who was very big on David Wilcock, reincarnation of Edgar Casey and such. He sold a couple pendants. One is like earth-based chakra. The other one is of a spiritual higher realm above the earth, cosmic level pendant. The earth once disappeared when I was at a art and garden party in West Philly, this past Friday. And I know that I had not, if some fell in my pocket, but I know my body had not been in any position for it to have fallen out of my pocket, so it must have been taken from me. It pissed me off, all right, but I'm thinking, is it reasonable to assume that my spirits and guides, kleptocratic as they may be, the
I'm doing
reason
a
they
show
are
right now.
stealing these, so
Huh?
to speak?
I'm doing a show right now.
Oh, your mom wants to know if you're
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Tell her
okay.
I'm almost there. Okay, sorry. It was just I had my cousin check up on me.
Yeah, okay, glad you told me that. But yeah, I was saying, does it make sense to think that my kleptocratic guides are taking this from me as a way of saying, you don't need this anymore, we will do the work for you, and or you've already attained a level of consciousness where having this on you is essentially pointless?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. And I'm gonna tell you something that's funny, because with things that disappear, sometimes they don't reappear. I guess it's because spirit will mess with you, and then when you're looking for it, that's when you don't find it. Now, if you don't find it at all, then it's because spirit took it, and how they absorb that energy, that is very amazing to me. But I don't question it. I just know that's happened to me, where I'll look for something and it'll disappear and I'll never find it. And then there's times where it'll like disappear and then it comes reappear. If it comes reappear, then it was meant for you to keep it. If it wasn't, then it was because something stronger force took it and probably needed it more than you did. So, but that's probably what I think. Oh, and I'm sorry, Andrew. There was my cousin talking, because my mom was making sure that I'm okay, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And that was another thing. I don't know if you have commercials, because I was going to tell you something, but we can talk about that. But other than that, that's just That's funny that you brought up that subject because it can happen. Things will disappear, but if it reappears, um, then then it was meant for you to have it. But if it disappears and it doesn't come back, I guess you were not meant to have it.
Yes, and I'm wondering this disappearing object phenomenon, why can't the human race use it to our advantage? Or another question ask, why can't the entities that are causing the disappearing phenomenon to happen, why can't they use it on other things that would certainly benefit the human race? One good example I can think of, you know how much plastic is in the Pacific Ocean. I
Hmm.
saw a documentary called Life After People once, where they said like if people disappeared for hundreds of years, one thing that would still be around is all the plastic debris in the Pacific Ocean because plastic don't dissolve in water. And well, I'm wondering, okay, if let's say hypothetically all the humans on planet Earth or a large amount of humans were to ask Source or the angels and guides or some higher level being of consciousness, would you please use the disappearing object phenomenon abilities that you have to make all of this plastic that's in the oceans disappear and put it in some other paradox realm, whatever, where it's not going
I
to
mean,
affect
I
us
think
anymore?
I think that if I had the ability to do that, I would. To help the save what can be saved of Mother Earth and things that shouldn't be there. Yeah, I would probably do something with it. So yeah, if I had the ability, and I would probably have to have some other psychics that are as strong as me to do that. So it could be done to use more of it in a positive, not in a negative. So that
But
would be something different.
okay, but the entities that have the ability to do that, is there a reason why they're not just doing it for us? I mean, are they basically selling us humans? You have to pay the price for what you've done from a pollution standpoint, so we're not just going to take all this
Yeah.
plastic out of the ocean for you? Is that a reasonable hypothesis as to why it's
Uh,
being done at will by them
I
for our
think
benefit?
if they knew, what that we're abusing, the way things are, and people just pollute the earth, I think they wouldn't do it because we're being it's almost like they're punishing us for it, even though they could do it, but they're just for like you said for a better word, they just choose not to do it. So we have to do all the labor and do it ourselves if we want it to be gone.
Yeah, so that's the way it goes in this matrix. What a shame. All
I
right.
know, right?
Yeah, got you to laugh about something not so funny. But anyhow, moving on. Last thing on your little bio here says you're a shaman healer as well. Now, lots of different styles of shamanic work, lots of different shamans using different methods. You got drumming, you got drugs. I hate to use the word drugs, but that's what, for lack of a better word, that's what you use. And certain shamanic substances are, well, actually, there's some substances that people use recreationally, but you really shouldn't. Akashic Records J. Andrew Bartzis once recommended that nobody, even in the states where you can buy it off the internet, Salvia divinorum, you should not bother to use that because that's a substance that should be used by shamans of the highest order to practice alchemy of the highest order, he says. And other substances which are used recreationally, like tobacco. I mean, a lot of people consider that to be a recreational substance, but it's not really meant to be used as that in its original pure form. It's meant to be used as a shamanic inebriant. And I saw in the Modern Marvels History Channel episode of Tobacco, they said that shamans who were witch doctor shamans of sorts would smoke tobacco to the point of death, which would actually allow them, almost to the point of death, to allow them to enter a near death trance state where they could actually diagnose the illnesses of their patients while in that trance state. And the tobacco essence, spiritual essence, told these shamans that this is what will happen if you smoke me to the point of death. And well, I don't how one has to ask, how do these shamanic witch doctors, how do they discipline themselves and get the willpower to smoke that much tobacco and not lose touch with it and flat out suffer? How do they control themselves to be able to enter that state where they can actually do a pure diagnosis to diagnose illnesses of their patients? Can you help people make any sense of this? And well, I'm asking too many questions at once here, but please get into that, and then I'll elaborate on some other shamanic things.
Honestly, with the shamans, if they do that, I guess it's just that they're so in tune with their native that They don't think of what they're doing, but I think they absorb so much tobacco or smoking whatever, they can get visions and they can actually do a lot of healing. But I guess it's just that they have this different belief system, with the Native Americans. So with that being said, it's just something that we don't understand, but it just happens that way. So yeah.
We don't understand. It just happens that way. All right. Fair enough. And your shamanic healing skills, what do you do? And how do you do it?
I guess I use like sound,
Sound. Okay.
sound therapy, and then like I use, well, I don't have a drum, but I use different things that I can do to make different sounds, like maybe like a wind chime. So it just depends on different methods and stuff like that. And then is with the smudging, I use like a feather. I have a shaman feather, so I do a lot of different healings with that and stuff like that. But it's kind of interesting because I pick up stuff like that too, and I'm very in tune with nature. So, because I always do believe the trees and the grass, everything has a spirit to it, especially in the Native American beliefs.
Yes, those Native Americans are very fascinating people, to say the least. Um, looking here, areas covered include love and relationships. Interesting, you chose a heart with a crown on top of it. That's a kind of a unique logo there. I might as well ask you why you chose that. But other than that, when it comes to love and relationships, oh boy, I cannot begin to tell you how much I want to find my wife and start a family. And my time period has allegedly passed. A couple psychics that I spoke to back in late 2015 told me around early 2019, late 2018, I find my dream girl and move in with her and start a family. That has yet to happen. Of course, time is an illusion. They can't really be precise on that, and I can't hold anything against them for not being precise. But at some of the recent events I went to, it said that my past life still affected me negatively in the present moment, and my general desire to sometimes get a little angry and enjoying being angry is being a little bit of a hindrance in my ability to find a girl. So, well, I know I said I didn't ask you to do any specific readings on me, but hey, I'm not the only person who would have a problem like this. So, for the sake of all the people
Yeah,
that do, how do you suggest people like I, who tend to get angry a lot and have like maybe some past lives affecting them, can fix that to be able to find love and relationships to start families and whatnot?
I think for me, I would think that you would have to probably do some cleansings. You need to do like an aura cleansing, a spiritual cleansing, emotional. You would have to do like mentally, physically, and spiritually cleanse your body and reduce whatever anger issues you have. I know it's easier said than done. Um, but I think you can do it. It's just the potential of you wanting to do it, whatever. And this is what I do when people, what they can do to release anger and not have so much anger and they love being angry. Best way to do it is you have to look on the certain days of the moon cycles and stuff. I would say go barefooted if you have sand, or you can go near an ocean if you're near an ocean, and you go barefooted and just have your hands up, let the negative energy flow into the ground, and then to absorb the energy from the universe, the moon or what the stars, whatever, you have your hands out, and you can say like a prayer and just say absorb energy from the universe, to be more lighter and not being, I guess, angry, and just to get rid of all my pain that I'm going through. You would feel like once you get that energy, you're gonna feel like electricity flowing through your body. You're gonna feel like a static of energy coming from the sky, and then whatever that's negative, it's gonna be going into the ground.
Yes, interesting. I do try to do that a lot. Spend a lot of time in nature, grounding and whatnot. So I'm certainly not new. It's not new for me. But then again, at the same time, I always find myself getting angry sometimes about things. It's kind of hard not to, because like I say, I like being mad. Not that I like being mad at other people. It's just that feeling of like having an iceberg on you and using great strength to remove it, and using anger to enhance your ability to to beat the system. Like when I was a shot put and discus thrower, well, not really true with discus because you got to be finesse when throwing a discus, but with a shot put anyway, my shot put coach always said, like, try to get a little angry and scream as loud as you can when you throw the shot, because that does actually enhance the ability of the shot put to travel a longer distance. And I don't know if that's carried over in the present time to affect me in ways that have hindered my spiritual awakening. I hate to think it does, because I saw like all the work doing with shot putting.
See, and that's the thing too. What I was gonna say is that with you being the host, and I know you never asked for a reading, but I think with what you're going on with the. I remember how you said you were telling the listeners about the network, all that stuff. Honestly, I do believe you're gonna struggle, but you're still standing tall, and you will make it. It's just that don't let anybody discriminate you or discourage you, and keeping the network of your station and your and stuff like that, because I think the more guests or the more people you have, your chances as interviewing them, you're actually helping yourself plus the guests that you're having. So that's just my little insight to tell you.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about there. So looking on the next thing here, guidance for future goals and desires. You chose a archery board with some arrows in it to be the logo for that, for whatever the reason. But anyhow, when it comes to future goals and desires, kind of flies in the face, they say, of trying to live in the present moment, because time is an illusion. Everything's happening at once. You want to live in the present. So, how does one make sense of that in relation to being concerned about what may happen? Maybe not concerned is the proper word to use, but be aware of what is on the verge of happening in the future and the probabilities of things happening in the future. I mean, how do you draw the line between when it's okay to always worry about the present and forget about the past and future versus learning from your mistakes in the past and being cautious, or like another word I probably shouldn't use cautious because it seems to imply fear, but being aware maybe of the future. How do we make sense of this? Because it's such a confusing issue that you hear so many contradictory things and everybody agrees to disagree on it.
Honestly, I just think that you wouldn't have to let go of the issues that you worried about the world and focus on yourself. That's the best advice I can give people, is that they would need to not worry about other stuff. And I know that's easier said than done, but as long as you don't worry about other things, you need to focus on yourself and start doing healings, whatever it takes to get you back up on your feet. With all the stuff that's going on with this world. I mean, if there was so many healers, I think we could make a big difference. But some of us have different intentions, and others are just so envious of each other. And honestly, it shouldn't be that way, but it is, and that's what humanity of people, we need to be together as a family. And in reality, it's just sad. It really is. And that's a part of being empath, that I feel so much pain, so much hate when we really think about it. When we pass away, what are we going to be? We're going to turn into ashes and dust. So why be jealous of another person just because of something that they did, that oh man, I want to do? Well, you don't have to follow what the other person is doing. Do your own journey. Don't have so much hate, because hate is the most evilest thing ever. And I can tell you that comes from the devil himself, and that's not godlike. We have to have more enlightenment in this world. That's why I think with the weather, I think a lot of us don't know what we're doing, but some of us are doing that in our subconscious. And I guess God is just trying to tell us, wake up, people, wake up. Appreciate life, because it can be taken away from you in a matter of seconds.
Well, that thing you mentioned about worrying about yourself and not being concerned about outside forces. Now, I've heard that a lot from people who tell me how to improve my skills, because, like I said, I worry about the system of domination and control and how to throw a monkey wrench in it and how to do things to spread love throughout the world when, like, well, I say I'm worrying about the big picture, but then again, they say focus on yourself. It's kind of it's a confusing matter, and I do want to ask you one specific thing that ties into this. Does it make sense to always blame yourself? Because like Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa, a fascinating individual, a lot of people know him from when he interviewed David Icke, or David Icke interviewed him. He said the best advice anybody ever gave him was his mother telling him, "You have no one to blame but yourself." And I think that it's kind of not right to look at it that way 100% of the time if you live in a matrix where there is free will interference. Because if there's free will interference, then, well, what's wrong with blaming those who are interfering with your free will for the problems? So you can't blame
You
anyone but
can't.
yourself. So, as contrary to what Kritimo says, with all due respect to him. So that raises the question, is it like there a percentage factor with this, like 98% yourself and 2% the outside world? And how do we make sense of understanding, how do we make that percentage real? How do we keep our activity within the confines of that percentage so that we don't make things complicated for ourselves? How do we make sure that we are only doing like 2% worrying about fixing the world's problems and 90% fixing our problems? Or dare I say it, am I looking this the wrong way? Is there perhaps maybe you should focus on yourself entirely because, well, free will interference is, for reasons that I'm not quite sure of, not something we should be concerned about. I know I'm throwing out a lot of questions here, but it's such a confusing issue. I'm sure you get my drift, though. How do
Yeah,
you make sense of this?
honestly, I think with all this stuff, I just think for me, with everything that's going around the world, the best way, and I'm being told to say this, don't ask me why, but I'm being told to say this. It's a distraction to throw you off your purpose. And instead of trying to, I mean, because all of us, if we could probably fix this world better, but it's just not everyone's going to have the same intention, like I said before. So I think for me, the best way to put it is a distraction. So like it's like an illusion. It wants you to see what it wants you to see. And then when you focus on something that has nothing to do with you, where does that leave you? Out in the desert, like out in the forest, and then you feel lost. And in order to put yourself back together, you have to be self-centered and grounded and not worry about everything else. Because in the end, who's going to take care of you? Nobody's going to do it. You have to do that on your own. And then that's when you realize, you know what? Let me focus on myself. And then if there's certain things that you can help when somebody comes across you and says, "Well, I need some change," then you make a little difference and give him a homeless some change. I mean, you can't help everybody. I mean, you want to, but there's just certain people that you can't. Certain people you can't.
Right. Someone who wants to be a whistleblower would maybe be a little confused by this. I mean, if you come across some information that is definitely worthwhile for everybody to know about for the sake of like exposing a lie or getting out info that could potentially benefit others, um, one would say you're being it's ridiculous to use the excuse, well, I'm only going to worry about myself, so I'm not going to tell the world this important information. I can guarantee you Edward Snowden was not thinking I'm going to only worry about myself, and use that as an excuse to not expose to the whole world that they're being spied on by a surveillance system that intends to blackmail people and not keep people safe, contrary to what they want us to think they're doing it for. So I mean, that's one contradictory thing to this issue that raises questions, and also like the idea that, well, if you're trying to solve the problems of the world, are you not solving your own problems because you are infinite? Therefore, everything that you see, hear, perceive through main senses and other senses that are not the five main senses is another version of you. Therefore, like someone who does an Alex Jones style protest with a bullhorn and a poster board. And I'm saying this because, to be honest with you, I kind of want to do this at a conference that I got kicked out of. I'm not really going to get into this, but I did nothing wrong, and I did not deserve to get kicked out of it, but I did. And the next time this conference goes around, I intend to bring a poster board and a bullhorn. I'm thinking about doing that to make my statement heard, and some would say you're going about that the wrong way, and I mean, focus on your own issues and not other issues. Well, excuse me, that conference is me. I'm infinite. That's a part of me. So how can you say that people who worry about the problems of the world are focusing on a distraction when the rest of the world is them by virtue of the fact that they're infinite consciousness? Any comments or statements or answers?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, everything does make sense what you're saying, but I just think with there's only so much you can do, Andrew, and it's sad because I mean, I would if I had the chance, I would love to go to conventions and stuff like that. And there's some things that if there's things that bother you, it's good to speak up and to let it out. Going to conferences now, if they threw you out, the only thing I think the reason why they did it, even though I know you ain't gonna go into why, but I just think it's because you're spreading the truth of God in a certain way, but in your way of how you speak. So I'm thinking that the people that didn't know about whatever you were talking about, they were like, in my mind, they were like, well, we need to shut him up because he's saying things that he's not even supposed to know, and all these people at the public conference are paying attention, and they're going to start looking into it, and then they're going to start noticing that there's, with whatever kind of convention, if it has something to do with the government, of course, people, there's a lot of things that are deceived, so they're not going to, they don't want you to spread the word of the truth. And if you feel like you have to, then more power to you, because I mean, if I had a chance to do conferences, that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I know when the time is right, I will go to conferences and I will tell them, about abilities and being so judged with society with as being psychics that mediums that they say that we're of the devil and thinking like that. And that was back in the old days. And a lot of people still believe that, that they think that our gifts are not of God. And I totally disagree with that. That's another subject that kind of just ticks me off because it's sad because I mean if they think that these gifts don't exist, then you tell me this one question: what was God? God was a healer. God was a psychic, and I know that. I don't have to read the Bible to know that. I already know. It's just that was our Lord and Savior. He was gifted, and He died for our sins. So, with that being said, it's just, I mean, I can talk about all the weirdest things, and you would be like, wow, that's spreading knowledge. And it's just that people just are so brainwashed with all this stuff, and it's just sad that people with our gifts, I think people judge us because they don't understand us. And with that too, I think they're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of not knowing. They can't if they can't explain it, they're gonna stay away from it. And that's just my beliefs on that other subject.
Okay, well, that was not the reason I got kicked out, but I think I'm just gonna move on from that and get back to talking about the interview thing here. Moving down the list here, areas covered include a career, new opportunities, and promotion. And there's a picture of what appears to be a contract next to that. Now, this idea of trying to find a place to work and things to do, now, it's a controversial subject because they say you need money to make a living in this world. That's the way it works, like it or not. But then again, the realization that 9 to 5 jobs were created as a means of enslaving humanity, and the idea that you get paid is just a way of maintaining the illusion that it's not enslavement when it actually is, would lead one to make the case, well, it's not in my best interest to find employment because I'm just going to be a cog in a system that, well, is designed to enslave me, and two, is designed to not allow for things, for technologies and things to come out that would make employment unnecessary and obsolete. There's more than enough technology out there to replace humans and like get rid of starvation to the point where nobody would have to work 9 to 5 anymore. And well, the argument I hear as to why would it be nice if we could just release all that out at once? Well, the counter argument is no, that's too much of a shock to the system. Society would fall apart if we did that because we've gotten so accustomed to being slaves that releasing everything that would allow us to not be slaves anymore is not going to work out for the better, even if that is the intention behind doing it. And also, it's like the higher a job you get paid, the more enslaved you're going to be, even though they may not seem that way because you're getting rewarded, but like the people that make the lowest amount of money are struggling to make ends meet are the ones who are fighting the system the hardest. It's the way it's been designed here. Now that's designed to change over time. Um, but I just got your message there, 6:55 your time, which is shortly under 2 hours, right?
Yeah,
Just okay.
because I know people were calling me, and and I'm still love doing the show, but it's just that I didn't think about what today was, and
Okay.
I
Well,
know, but you know what I mean. It's just
yeah.
because.
All right. Maybe another 50 minutes or so, and then we'll call it a show. So, yeah. So this thing about how exactly are you supposed to pursue having a successful career when pursuing and having a successful high profit making career is only get you enslaved in the matrix and be a hindrance to your freedom? It seems counterintuitive, but that's the way the matrix has been designed. Any advice, and how do you go about teaching people how to have new opportunities and promotions in ways that don't cause them to get enslaved in this domination and control matrix where employment is enslavement?
Honestly, I think that the best advice I can give them is that whenever they get an opportunity to, with opportunities or jobs, I just say just go for it and just don't give up. Because, with me, I don't give up with my opportunities. I take every opportunity as a blessing. Like you, I'm glad that I came across you. And I just see that that's a blessing in itself. And I just don't believe that there's anything that are coincidences. I just feel like it's just the best advice I can give people that, they're probably going to get discouraged, or people are going to say, you don't have the potential of this because you don't qualify for this. Don't give up. The best thing that I can tell you is don't give up, because you don't have, God gave you unlimited potential. And the way I see it is you use what God gave you. If it's a gift or you're a carpenter or painter, don't give up. No matter what you want to be, we, you can be the American dream. Is what I remember a lot of people used to say that a long time ago. People don't even say that anymore, and it's sad. But I think me and you, Andrew, are living proof that dreams come true. God made you, to be on this show to help people. Me, God gave me help, gift to help people heal, to talk to their loved ones on the other side, to help people in the paranormal field, to find missing people. I just think that we all have a gift. It's just that a lot of us limit ourselves, and we shouldn't do that. And that's the bigger message with what the question you asked me. Stop limiting yourself. That's the best answer that I can give you. And as a matter of fact, I was told to tell you that, because people just, they say, well, you know what? I can't do this. I give up. No, don't do that, because you don't know what's on the other side of the opportunity, or you don't know what's on the other side of that door. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't limit yourself. A lot of variables go into that, and that kind of ties into something else that's sort of related to this that I want to ask you about the idea behind whether or not someone has the right to want to be a slave or not. This came up in conversation in the session that I was at with a psychic with a crystal ball and all. I mean, I flat out told her that I am not of the opinion or the belief, and I'm not the only one who says that humanity does not have the right to want to be enslaved, because those who don't want to be slaves are going to be enslaved more easily if there's a lot of people around them that want to be slaves. Therefore, those of us who don't want to be slaves have the right to hassle, harass, and wake up the people that don't want that do want to be slaves, in order to make sure that we are not overpowered by the system of domination and control as a result of those sheeple. And on a related note, I mean, consider the like standing up for your rights in front of an abusive government official or police officer, like someone who gets pulled over on the side of the road for violating a traffic law, which technically only applies to commercial drivers, but the government doesn't want you to know that because they can steal our money. I mean, someone who gets pulled over in a car and flat out tells the cop, listen, I'm not in commerce. You have no authority to enforce this law upon me. No law is valid. It violates my rights. I'm not cooperating with you. I mean, if someone tells me, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to surrender to the cop and do what he says because I can't afford to get arrested because I might lose my job and all that, my response to them would be, hey, stop being a wussy. That's not an acceptable answer. If you want to be free, that's going to come with hardships. And if you don't want to go with hardships, you deserve to be, dare I say it, shunned and reviled. And if you lose your job, hey, you have the option of selling drugs, living off welfare, and begging for money. And that is the only acceptable thing to do in a situation where you're being hassled by and like having your rights violated. So don't you tell me that you can't afford to go through the hassle. I mean, I've actually said that a few times, and the answer that I usually get is, well, that's not how things work in the real world. No, well, how things work in the real world has nothing to do with the fact that people have the option of going through more hassle to stand up for themselves. It's just that too many people are cowardly and chicken to do that, and that raises the question: is it okay for us to shun people that are like that, yeah, for the sake of raising up the consciousness of humanity and the spirit and the bravery and the well-being of humanity to not be slaves anymore? Or because the psychic who had the crystal ball actually told me, well, God would not agree with you, Andrew. God would say, well, let the people who want to be slaves go about their way without interference. So seems like an agree to disagree kind of issue.
Honestly, what to me, I do believe with what you said, with all this, government and stuff. I think we're entitled to stand up for our beliefs. We're stand up for the freedom and all the, for everything that we stand up for. Stand up for your beliefs. Stand up for what you think is right. But I think with everything you're saying is that I think with all this police and stuff like that and things that I've even seen on the news, and it's just so empathically it hurts because what I feel with all that is that they're abusing their power, and it's all about power. That's all it is. It's just about power. But I hope to God that I don't live to see it. But I think with how they say the freedom of speech, the freedom to say how you feel. I think, oh my God, I was just told to say that. I don't even want to say it. That um, that things are going to change. Things are going to change. That's why I said don't take things for granted, and that's why I don't take things for granted because I'm glad that we have a freedom to the freedom of speech. But the way that with everything that you're telling me, that I'm picking up is just people just abuse the power. Lawyers abuse their power, and instead of taking care of people, they're it's all about the money. They don't care about humanity. They don't care. That's what society we're getting into. We just do not care. They just don't care about humanity. But with people that are light workers like me, we try to remind people that there is humanity, there is good people in the world. Just because there's one bad apple does not mean there's there's bad psychics or bad mediums or bad lawyers. But all it takes is one bad person, and everybody else gets blamed for it. And that is really sad. And I just, if I had to say anything, I just totally disagree with that on an empathic level. It brings me to tears, because there's a lot of people that we should fight for our rights, and and they don't have to be slaves. So that psychic that told you that that Jesus said, "Well, just go about their way." No, I think he would help them in the best way he could, but he would get punished for it because he's fighting for slavery, and that's what my belief is, and it's sad, but it leaves me speechless because you're talking about very interesting things, and it just on an empathic level it hits me hard because I understand where you're coming from. I really do, and it's me being gifted. It's like almost like everything's being thrown at me, and there's other psychics too that we feel the pain, but we can't do it alone. We cannot. One psychic cannot help this world. I think if there was like 1,000 psychics, in a circle and putting love into the universe, it would be a better place. a lot better place.
Yeah, well, putting psychics in a circle and all, another controversial issue, like big meditations and all, to try to spread love. They say a lot of thousands of people meditating together in an area and spread love to that area can suppress the fear based energies of that area and spread love more easily. Although I did listen to a customer, Chris Garcia and Andrew Bartz's in a recent talk, well, not a recent talk, but one that I listened to recently that I had bookmarked, say that though he's not really on par with joining up with many of those large group meditations because they often get infiltrated and one parasite can greatly hinder it, he asserts. But while I have the utmost respect for Andrew, and I have no doubt that, in my opinion anyway, that his Akashic reading seals are the best way to get an answer to a question, I think that he's kind of missing the point when he says that they're not worth getting into because they can be infiltrated and sabotaged by just one little bad apple. I think that the expression "you're only as strong as your weakest link" is kind of, there are many exceptions to that, and many
Mm.
cases where just because there's
Yeah.
one weak link does not mean that the rest of the things that aren't weak cannot perform to a very, very high level of good capacity. And I think that such would definitely be the case with big, large meditations, which are designed to suppress fear and spread love. So, what's your take on the idea of that?
I would say just agree. I would agree with that, with what you said. I just feel like it's just, I think we just have to just give so much love and guidance and help people. It's just, it's tough, with this world. And it's just really depressing that I think people just need to just give love and try to help the best that you can. And for the people that, they choose to be slaves, I disagree. They don't have to. They can change their life, but it's really, really up to them. That's the best thing I can tell you, Andrew, and that's the best answer I can give you.
Good answer, I say. And last thing on the list of areas covered include inner growth and spiritual development. At one of the sessions that I went to at a local spiritual metaphysics center, I kept hearing over and over, well, okay, if I'm not supposed to worry about the big problems of the world and I'm supposed to focus more on inner growth, well, thank you for telling me that, but how does one improve inner growth? What does that mean? And they couldn't really give, the lady who I was speaking to couldn't really give a true, absolute, definitive answer. It was basically one of those you have to discover yourself kind of things. Well, it actually just had a brief epiphany of sorts just now for whatever the reason. I don't know if it's maybe the people that are guiding you on this interview are trying to guide me too, but I'm thinking what maybe inner growth means is that I actually need to, among other things, improve my metaphysical skills so I can become the next Chris Garcia or the next Daniel Teague. And I'm thinking, whoa, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute. Are you really going to go that far to suggest that? Because I have had like some experiences with this where like improving metaphysical skills and all, one of the like telekinesis, there was a period of time for several months where I like tore a teeny tiny itsy bitsy piece of paper off like the corner of a paper and put that teeny tiny itsy piece of paper at the edge of a table and tried to use telekinetic powers using just my hand and my like using the Jedi Sith forces, preferably Jedi of course, to move that thing like the Jedi do in the Star Wars movies, to move that paper so that it would fall off the edge of the table. And no matter how hard I tried, after all this time I tried, I could not get that thing to move, even though I acknowledge that such power does exist. It is for real. It's all in the Force. The Force is Star Wars was truth under the guise of fiction in that regard. But I eventually decided, you know what? I got better, more constructive things to do with my life than this. So screw it. I'm moving on. Well, did I make a bad choice there? Is it in my best interest to continue those things and maybe not if not telekinesis, other things like do I need to actually drive myself crazy to learn how to become a remote viewer or a psychic or someone with telekinetic powers? Because that is focusing on inner work. And if I do have those abilities, does that actually mean that it would be worth it? Because the world I see around me would actually change in that regard. And if it does, Well, that would also raise the question, well, what about all the other things that I could have been doing when I spent so much time trying to learn how to do these things? I mean, so many other things that I could have done. Was it not in my best interest to maybe do those other things instead? Well, some would say, well, no, of course not, because you learned how to do it. But all the time it took me to learn those things, was it
Yeah.
worth it? That's a hard question to ask. So,
I
do
mean,
you?
but if it was for me, I think if you wanted to learn telekinesis or any gifts or whatever project or whatever, I think it's worth it. It's just got to take a lot of effort. Some of us are just don't have the ability to move things. I mean, but it just depends. But it really, if you have the passion for it, you wouldn't see it as like, oh my God, this is annoying that I don't have time for it. No, I think it's just that you just have to have patience and have an open mind. And then with that other person about with that question about growth, the question that I remember you said that she said, well, you just have to discover it yourself. To some point, I kind of agree to a point, but in a way I don't, because I do believe that if you want to do growth or, in the metaphysical field or whatever you want to do, I think, like they say, it's knowledge is power, and the more you put effort into it, the more that you can do, and the more that you can grow, and you can help your abilities. If you have psychic abilities, if you work on it, you're gonna have growth because you're gonna be like, wow, I can actually read the cards for somebody, and or if you want to try telekinesis, if you put so much energy into it, so much energy that you don't even know that you have potential, and it moves. That would be amazing because you took so much effort and so much energy. Yes, it might take a lot, but if you feel you have the passion for it and the love, and if it comes from your heart, anything is possible. Anything. And that's the best answer I can give you with what that other lady didn't tell you, but I'm telling you that spirit growth is, yes, you have to discover it yourself, but at the same token, you can grow with from inside and out. And the more you know and the more knowledge you have, you're growing. You might not see it because you can't see science or scientific stuff, but as time goes on, you're going to understand that in the end of the tunnel, it was worth the wait.
Well, yeah, and that also does raise the question. I mean, when you're flowing with life, if it flows, go. If you're stuck, chuck. But what cues can one pick up at to know if they're on the right path? Like me being a radio host, I naturally got to watch a lot of I watch a lot of documentaries and a lot of YouTube videos to keep up to date on new discoveries and all that and new information, which is definitely could certainly come in handy if I'm hosting a show and need to get out some information that could come in handy in a conversation with someone like you who's a guest. And but I mean, I've heard Andrew Bartas, the Akashic Records reader, say at this point, I think maybe it's time to spend a little less time doing research and more time being active. Okay, well, that kind of goes, okay, being active, but how that flies in the face somewhat is sort of like focusing on world issues versus focusing on your own growth and development. So if I had Andrew Bartas on my show, I'd definitely like to ask him that. How do you be active while balancing out focusing on your own growth and being like a radio host? What cues can I take? I think this is the best question for me to ask for you in this regard. What cues can you take from the universe and your guides and source and angels or whoever is guiding you and protecting you on your day-to-day homework assignments and agenda things in life to know like this is when it's time to stop doing this and move on to something else? Or is it really not something to depend on the guides to direct you? It's basically your own discernment is where it's most important, and your own discernment is kind of the way to go in that regard. Which homework assignments take priority?
Honestly, I think I would say the best cues to go with what if you're on the right path. I would say just listen to your inner guidance, and you will start hearing whoever's your guide, your grandmother, whoever passed away. They're more likely to be your guide. So the best way to give you the advice is just follow your heart. And if it feels legit and it feels like you're on the right path, then you're on the right path. Like personally, I didn't know you, Andrew, and I'm glad I came across you. I don't feel in my heart, like psychically, I don't feel that you are on the wrong path. I just feel like in my heart, you feel like you need some kind of direction. But I'm being told that you need to to trust yourself and your skills of being the host. And with when you trust yourself, what you're gonna do is just let it flow naturally. Be the best host that you can be. And all that research and catching up with technology, yeah, that gives a little bit insight of how to do do better show to attract more people. But within that, you need to just be yourself. Be yourself. And honestly, that tells me that you are trying because you have a show and that's good to learn because you never stop learning. And for me, that's how I do with my gifts. I go with, I look up other things and I look at other psychics too, but I don't take their ideas and make them my own. I make my Chris Garcia my own ideas how I'm going to run my business or how I'm going to do readings or how I'm going to tell them this. It just comes from the heart. Not all psychics use the same gift, that their gifts come from the heart. Some of them, they just logically just tell them whatever they want to tell them. And is that the right way to do it? Well, in the end, you will be judged. You will be judged for if you're just doing it just to do it. That speaks for itself. But for me, I just feel that it's just be the best that you can be and be different, be unique. And that's the best thing I can tell you is that don't be like somebody else, like trying to be someone else that's on a different show. Just be yourself. And being yourself is being different. And that's how you attract people. And that's the best answer with your path. And I honestly psychically feel that you were on the right path. It's just that I just feel like you're being tested in your faith and your beliefs. That's probably why things are just seem kind of weird, that you might be in danger with the network. But I personally don't think it's just that I think with success, if whoever is trying to knock you down and trying to make you disappear and never hear about your radio network, I think with that, I just think that if they're not happy, they don't want you to be happy because they see the potential that you have and they see you as a threat because you got listeners and you're taking their people away from them.
Right. Well, I don't ever want out of the radio host to wage war with me because I lose audience members. My answer to that would be subscribe to both of us and use your discernment to decide which show you should listen to and which one is not worth listening to. So that's what I would say to that. But as far as the control system trying to shut me up, well, I'm not going to give in to any threats at all. If they threaten to kill me and my family, I would say, go ahead and kill me and my family. I'm not shutting up. Maybe that would actually keep me safe. I don't know. But anyhow, that's kind of a touchy subject. Not going to say any more on that. Moving on to something else. It's We got 20 more minutes to go. Let's talk about animal communication because that seems to be one of the things here on the services here. Now, a couple questions I have with animal communication. Well, first of all, if you do plant communication, can you compare and contrast animal and plant communication? And also, when it comes to communicating with animals, is there a general rule? Perhaps one would expect that it would be easier for a human being to communicate with an ape or a monkey or gorilla than it would be to communicate with anything else because their genes are closer to ours. Chimpanzees in particular are the kind of ape that's closest to us. It would be easier to communicate with them than it would any other animal for the fact that our genes are the similar. But then again, others would say, no, 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 everything is infinite consciousness. It really shouldn't make a difference. Well, that's the first question. And also, like I said, compare and contrast animal and plant communication, if there is anything you can say about plant communication.
For the communication with with an animal, it's a really in a different level telepathically. And if you touch a dog, if you're good at communicating, you can read the body language, and that you go by that, and you can tell if there's something wrong with the dog too, because I can see like auras through animals too. So that would be something that I would communicate and then just talk to them. And there's a response, would tell me what was going on, or, what kind of issues they're going through. So it would be different. Now, as when you said about plant, if I heard correctly, you said plant communication, right? Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, and I guess fungus communication, because fungus is not technically a plant, but it's not an animal. So, or also, I guess, microscopic animals, protists. I guess they should be considered animals, but are they? Maybe they're on their own
Yeah, that would be a
species.
different. That would be a different. I wouldn't want to communicate with a roach, even though I would, But that's just. I guess it's just that if a person had communication with all animals that, or even people that we don't want to communicate with, like, I mean, if they have that communication, then go ahead and do it. Now, as far as the plant communication, that's a whole different thing. You're actually communicating with something that cannot respond like a dog can. But I think you would just have to just see what kind of feeling you get off of it just by touching the plant. If it's growing, you would know, and then you would probably get a name telepathically, and you just go with it. It's just you're actually connecting with nature, so it would be on a different level. And that's something that now you got me thinking. Maybe I should do that maybe one day and see what kind of response I get from communicating with a tree or something like that. And we can probably do that on another show, because this was a short and something we can talk about some other things. But I think with that makes it very interesting to me, because you just never know. You really never know.
Yeah, well, one also has to ask, what about, well, if everything is consciousness, like the Japanese got it right in this regard, everything has a soul, everything has consciousness, then, so one should be able to communicate with a television that's in the off position, or
Yes.
a computer, or a toaster oven, or anything that's not alive, then relative to, because alive and not alive, that's all scientific mainstream science dogma. Those in the metaphysics community would say, asking whether something is alive or not is the wrong question. It's whether or not it's conscious. And well, in this universe, the answer is yes, everything has consciousness, so it's always consciousness. So if you can communicate with animals and plants, then you should be able to communicate with a plastic bottle, or anything else that mainstream science does not consider to be alive. Although the question is, okay, well, if it is in theory possible, because everything is consciousness, one would have to think it would be in practice more difficult, because living things have a higher vibrational essence, being in a higher dimension or density than something that is not alive. So it would naturally be harder to
Yes,
do. Do you
yes.
agree with that?
Yes, I think it would be very harder, because because I guess it's just they're not on the same frequency as like the plants and the animals. So I totally agree with that. You would have to use more energy and to hold on to the object and see, what you could pick up from a bottle or something. That would be totally off my realm, but it would be something that if it was a challenge and I said, you know what, let me try. Let's see what I can get off of something that doesn't have an aura to it, or doesn't have no lifespan, or anything like that. It would be something different, because you want to explore your horizons.
Yes. Moving on to another one here. I see you have missing persons on your thing here. Now, I want to know, could this also apply to missing persons that have been determined to be dead? Like one case that's fascinated me, because I don't live too far from the crime scene of this, the boy in the box mystery, America's Unknown Child. They nicknamed him the kid that was found in the Fox Chase area, Philadelphia, intersection of Susquehanna and Veree Road, way back in like the late 50s, I think it was, when that area was a wooded thicket area. A kid whose nude, badly bruised body was found in a box, and I'm wondering, like, how can we ever find out who this kid is? They say we're worse off now because all the people like alive in that time are now dead. So, but still, some hope springs eternal. And I recently sent a message to the VDoc Society, which works on cold cases, saying, hey, why don't you guys consider consulting Akashic Records readers and psychic mediums to find the answers to your cases? I mean, you can't prove that what they're saying is true, but it's one of those, you got nothing to lose and everything to gain, because if these people truly can access the Akashic Records, well, why not try to
Yeah.
assume that they're telling the truth, and then maybe you could go from there, and maybe if you're by a stroke of luck, you can find the right leads. Now, also people that are missing that are not that may be thought dead but may not be dead, like the two cases that have fascinated a lot of people, Natalie Holloway and Amy Lynn Bradley, who both disappeared off Paradise Islands off the coast of South America. Amy Lynn Bradley specifically off a cruise ship. They say Natalie Holloway is probably dead, but who knows? She may have been sold to sex slavery, and maybe Amy Lynn Bradley was too. Do you, I can't help but ask, have the ability to find out what exactly happened to these people if they're still alive, and if they're dead, well, can you still find out if they're dead or not,
Yeah,
and get answers to what happened to them?
I think I would probably be able to get answers to what happened to them. If they were dead, I would know right away. They would come to me in spirit. They would communicate with me. Now, if they were not dead, then I would come up with, like, the guys of, I guess, the family that wants to know what happened to them. Then I would tell them what my theory is and how it happened and how they came about and stuff. And I would be able to tell them remote viewing of what the events that occurred until there was no trace or no evidence that they're still alive or dead. But I would have theories of, comparison theories of what I feel, because I would say that, of course, which I don't care, because I'm very open minded and I very speak my mind just like you. And I'm just going to just put it this way. If I knew, which I do know, that some of these kidnappings and these disappearing people don't know that our own system is behind it. That's funny I said that. Uh, but it is true. There's a lot of theories that people have always known for years that are very in tune, very psychic. We know that a lot of the damn government has to do with this, but there's no backup to prove that. But we don't need proof because we see it and we feel it, and that's just the inner knowing. And that's just, for me, I get a kick out of it, because I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, y'all think we're stupid? I'm sorry, but no, we're smarter than what you give yourself credit for. And then it's funny because this is a totally different subject, but how people are very skeptical, right? Well, we're not supposed to know this, but we know that the government has government psychics. But of course, does the public know that? No, because they don't want it. They don't want the public to know that they use psychics for their benefit. But they're there. But that's their day in, day out job every day. And that's funny, because that goes back into almost being a slave and weren't having to work, and you don't have a say so because you're working for the system. With more of a psychic, that you don't work for the system, you're entitled to work and self-employed for yourself. So
Okay, we got about 10 minutes to go. So I see you have automatic writing. You have a crystal ball next to that. Now, the writing has been said, when you put something out on paper, and writing with a pen or a pencil is definitely better than typing on a computer. It really does make a difference in that regard, in regards to trying to get out what you want to manifest and get your thoughts out. And like, if you want to get out things that are bothering you and then burn it in a fire, it's better to write with a pen or a pencil than to type it on a computer screen. It's
exactly.
more natural. It is. And well, maybe you can get into the science behind why that is the case, and also what specific kinds of automatic writing do you suggest people do if they have X problem and they want to solve it through writing? What is the step-by-step procedure that they would do to deal with that problem or that issue in regards to writing?
I think they would have to use their guidance and say like if it's a relationship, and say, oh, I want to know if my husband's cheating on me. When you do it, you have to have sent Indian style, or any way to where you're comfortable. There has to be no noise, and you close your eyes and you put your finger down with the pen. You do not lift the pen up, and whatever you write, that's your answer. That's your answer, and that's how you can do it. And as a matter of fact, I've even tried that, and I've gotten successful answers with things in the past, with the past life, with somebody else that I know I was related to. I've even had them like to use me as channeling, to use my body, but as only with my pen, with my hand, and write down what they need to say. And I've gotten, years down and dates and stuff like that. So I've done that kind of stuff, and that's how I do it. But everybody has their own ability of how they want to use automatic writing with whatever they have the ability to use it for.
Right, and also why is writing with a pen or pencil better than typing on a computer?
I guess it's because you're using your the energy flows better. I guess because with the typewriter or something computer is because you see the number, you see everything. Now, as far as automatic writing, it would be used better with a pen than like with a typewriter because everything you see with a typewriter and with the the pen and the pencil, you're using your subconscious or whoever you want to communicate or whatever you're asking. You're going to get a truthful answer because that's from divine spirit, and divine spirit does not lie.
Fair enough. You mentioned the thing about sitting Indian style. Now, this a couple questions about that because of the something called lotus flower position. But the thing about that style, it's actually frowned upon in some healing circles. Like case in point, the John of God meditations that I go to. And just for the record, I want to make it clear, I am really, really starting to think that John of God, he actually did nothing wrong, and they really have uh, took him into custody and framed him for these sexual allegations just because they want him to want to shut him up because he poses a threat to the system. And all those people say, well, that's ridiculous because they could have gone after him a while back. No, 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 no. They never really wanted to go after him because it would cause bad karma if they did. They just decided to come after him now because they're basically fighting for their lives. The system is, so they basically had no choice but to take him in. They are going to regret it. And some of the people that actually came out and said that he abused them, like that lady who appeared on Laura Eisenhower's radio program,
Mm-hmm.
she did not really come across as being very truthful. I could tell by her body language that there was something wrong with her, I think. So, hey, people want to disagree with me, but I'm just pointing that out. And for the record, people at John of God Healings have actually said the entities that work with John of God, they actually say, don't cross your arms and legs. That actually hinders our ability to work with you. It's better if you're like sitting in a chair with your feet on the floor and your arms either on your side or just resting on your legs but not crossed. But you actually did say that you like to sit Indian style. So do you have any idea why the entities, which are supposed to be of a higher level of consciousness, you'd think they'd not be hindered by that, but apparently they are. Why? What is it about the Indian style lotus flower position or crossing in particular that makes it harder for them to do healing work on us?
Honestly, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think they could do it, but I think it just depends, I guess, on the frequency that they have. If they say, well, we don't like communicating with somebody with across their legs, you can have their legs straight, straight up and sit up like if you're sitting up. You want to try it that way, then you can do it that way. But everybody has their own way of doing it, so I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't feel like you would get false information. I guess it's just more for me. I guess it's just because of who I am, and I just feel like I would be connecting with spirit no matter how I'm sitting, and it shouldn't be a gesture. Oh, you got to sit this way to communicate with spirit. Because when I do readings on shows, I'm not sitting down. I'm telling you the truth. Like right now, as I'm on the show with you, I'm standing up. So if I wanted to communicate with spirit, it wouldn't matter. I could do it sitting down or standing up. So it really wouldn't matter.
Well, that is kind of reassuring. So, well, I guess now we might as well bring the show down because we only go out of 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to give you the chance now. Take these last few minutes, get out anything you'd like to get out. Give out your website again, I guess maybe your phone number again, your contact info, any future events or anything that you're going to be going to, anything you're planning on doing if you are doing that, and how people can reach you, and any suggestions and last bits of things that you want to say to prove that you're no fraud, you are legit. Not that I'm saying you are. I believe you are legit. I have no reason to think you're not. That you want to prove that you're the real deal, and people should definitely, it's definitely worth an investment to spend their money on your healing work, which you have every right to charge for because everybody's got to make a living. So, last few minutes, get out. You got the floor. Please close us out.
I guess they can contact me at Chris Psychic Garcia on Facebook, or they can find me at my cell phone 210-974-3470. Again, 210-974-3470, or you can reach me at my email, garcia187bluelove@gmail.com. There's another link, but I can't remember because I know Andrew has it. But I guess you would have to click on that link. I guess the best way to contact me is just with the information I gave you, unless if you want to know links to the website of how the testimonies. I have testimonies on there, other services that I do. So you can just contact me and add me on Facebook or message me on Messenger, and that's the best way to contact me. And I'll just leave it with that, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I will upload this tonight to a YouTube compatible format, and I will try to get this on YouTube by midnight tomorrow at the absolute latest, and I'll post a link to it on your Facebook timeline when I do.
All right.
So take care. Namaste, Chris. Thank you for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your trek through infinite consciousness.
You,
Take care.
you too, and God bless you.